Well, everybody, I'm home after watching Indy 5, which I was fully expecting to suck. And so it was kind of a strange experience going to this movie and even going to it with a sort of anticipation, looking forward to it, but not looking forward to really having an enjoyable cinematic experience, but kind of looking forward to seeing just just how bad it was going to be and how in what ways it was going to be bad. I sort of kept myself away from too many of the I got some spoiler. I ingested some spoilers. When the whole build up to this to the release of this film, but I didn't. I was curious to see for myself what it was going to be like, and um, I would have to say that it was bad in certain ways, as far as being woke and all that. I would say it was worse in certain ways than I thought it was going to be, and not as bad in other ways as I thought it was going to be. Let me try to explain. First of all, there's been a lot of controversy about this movie and the allegation that was this 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 apparent truth that was exposed by the YouTuber Doomcock about how they had supposedly released this film with a bunch of different possible endings, and that one of the endings involved Phoebe Waller-Bridge's character taking over as Indy, and Indy being wiped out of history, and her just becoming the new Indy, and Indy never having existed. And I found it really, really hard to believe that they would. I mean, I knew that these jackals, these white slavers, as George Lucas calls them, I knew that they were capable of a lot, but I didn't think they would actually do something like that. I thought if they pulled a stunt like that, they would have everybody hating them so hard forever, except for a small select group of progressive people who would say, "Oh, it's so good to see another the white male be depositioned, or what's the word, decentered, the decentering of the white male." But most everybody else would hate if they actually did that. So I still have a hard time believing that was ever a possibility. However, it is true that this movie was delayed a full year. It was supposed to be released last summer, but they had to do some more reshoots, and it's been admitted by no less than Harrison Ford that the ending of the movie was something that was reshot. So so that should tell you something, that there was initially perhaps an ending that was different than the one that they have now, and one that was seen as where it was seen that they needed to reel it back or dial it back from what it was, because it was being perceived as overly woke or too disrespectful of the this iconic cinematic character of Indiana Jones, which is a character who's much beloved by many, many people. I think maybe the idea was we need to tread more lightly, just like as I've said about Pride Month. When I was walking around the mall and putting my camera, my camera phone in all the storefronts and saying, I don't really see that much. It's not that conspicuous this year. There's not rainbow flags everywhere. There's not, it was in a couple places, but it was mostly not really there. And it seemed like they these vandals, these jackals, these culture destroyers that that have the upper hand of the culture shaping industries right now. They know, you know, in some cases it seems like they don't know when to stop, but in other cases, I think they kind of get a message and they sort of say, okay, it would be prudent for us to scale it back a little here, prune it back a little here. And I think that's what my guess is what happened with the ending of Indiana Jones. So what follows is me just getting my thoughts out in a way that's it's going to be a little bit rambling. It's going to be a little bit it's not going to be the most organized video that you've ever heard, or my thoughts aren't going to be the most organized. It's going to be a little scattered, perhaps, but I thought a good way of talking about the movie, and there will be soilers, by the way. I don't call them. I'm going to call them soilers instead of spoilers, because I want to soil this. I want this film to be soiled. I want it not to do well. I want the message to be sent that in spite of it being not as bad as it perhaps could have been, and in spite of it not being as bad as really I thought it was going to be, honestly, in a lot of ways, I still want it not to succeed. So if hearing soilers will soil the movie enough for you to make you not want to see it, which I know is there. That's kind of a paradox because I saw it, so I'm part of the problem, I guess. But I won't be seeing it anymore. I'll tell you that. I just felt like I had to see it. I had a certain curiosity, and like I've said before, the point that I've made before, this is a film franchise that I felt connected to, and that I felt informed my imagination, informed the imagination of my youth in so many ways that I wanted to see. I felt like I had a kind of personal stake in this. So anyway, here are the things that weren't as bad as I thought they were going to be, and I'm speaking honestly here. Even though we do see Indy as like it's 1969, and he is a bitter old man, and he is a drunkard. It's sort of implied, and his students all think he's boring, and he's out of touch, and he doesn't care about, it's the day of the moon landing, and everybody is, or it's the day when the astronauts returned from the alleged moon landing. Just had to throw that in there for red pill points, I guess. But anyway, I don't have a dog in that whole hunt, the moon landing question. But anyway, it's the day when the astronauts are back, and there's a ticker tape parade going through the center of New York City, and everybody's overjoyed and excited, but Indy just doesn't care. It's just like he's too bitter, he's too broken. He's the first time we see him, the prologue is from the late part of the war, where we see a de-aged Indy, and I thought the de-aged Indy was kind. I didn't really like it. I thought it didn't really work that well for me, and this is something that I'm taking some I guess I'm taking a minority view on this particular issue, because I've heard a lot of people say that they liked it, that they thought the de-aged Indy worked, and they thought that the first 20 minutes or so was really good, and I didn't. It was okay, as a framing device for the rest of the movie, as sort of a prologue. It was okay, but I didn't like de-aged Indiana Jones. What I would say is that Mads Mikkelsen's de-aged self looked a lot better for some reason. Mads Mikkelsen is the villain in this movie, and we see a younger version of him in this this prologue, just like we see a younger version of Indy. But anyhow, after the prologue, and the 80-year-old Indiana Jones first enters the picture, we see him, with his looking kind of decrepit, lying in his room. They're blasting music next door, and he's all grumpy about it. And it jolts him out of his sleep. He fell asleep on the couch, and he's an old bachelor living all alone, and we see him shirtless, and he looks he looks like an old man looks without his shirt on. It's kind of a little bit of a it's a little bit disrespectful, I think. But I would say the moments like that are not as many as I thought there were going to be, because for most of the movie, Indy ends up going on this adventure and doing all these things that there's no way an 80-year-old man would be able to do, and he mostly, seems very competent, even though there's the problem with the stunt doubles where he doesn't. It's obviously not him, or it's obviously CGI'd, or whatever the case may be. There are things that just don't look right. But it didn't seem like there were all that many egregious shots at, like, oh, he's old, he's worn down, he's worn out, he's decrepit, he's past his time, he's out of touch, he's about to croak. This is what your hero looks like. Ha 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 ha. That wasn't really. There didn't seem to be as much of that. And I know that supposedly Harrison Ford said he didn't want any jokes about age or aging or being old. Like, he was pretty adamant about that. And so that was that. They actually showed some restraint as far as that goes. Now, the other thing I had heard so much about, I'd heard a lot about, was the character of Phoebe Waller-Bridge, or Helena. People call her Fleabag, I guess, because of a prior role that she had done, but I'm not familiar with her at all as an actress. But they were, there was all of this talk like she's going to be this really annoying, condescending feminist type who just is scornful of Indy and treats him with contempt and that sort of thing. And I didn't really find that was so much the case. I really I didn't care for her character. I didn't. I sort of thought, why are we getting this character? Why is this Indy's sidekick? This. I mean, there is sense is made of it in the story, because in the story, she's the daughter of Indy's friend from that time period, which is a friend, by the way, we never had been introduced to before. But I guess that's okay. We could find out that he has another friend that we had never known about in prior movies. But she's actually his goddaughter, and you would think that I don't know. You'd think that they would be closer. They would know each other better for all that. But she just kind of shows up at a time when it's a lot later. Like, let's say 20 years after the last time they had seen one another, and so I don't really like having her there. I wouldn't have minded them having Mutt back, for another adventure, but apparently the fans all hated Mutt, Shia LaBeouf in Crystal Skull. So I mean, I guess I can see how, if it had to be someone, someone who was younger, it could have been. I mean, I can see how it could be her, But on the other hand, why her? Why this particular character? Being there seemed like a contrivance, and I will say she's not likable. She's not somebody you look forward to seeing. She's not somebody who has this like this banter there's not great chemistry between him and between she and Indy. Not that there's supposed to be like romantic chemistry or anything, but there's I thought that Indy and Mutt had better chemistry in Crystal Skull actually than Indy and Helena have in this movie. There are some annoying things with her, like she's super competent. She can do crazy and amazing stunts. Like she can ride she can get on a motorcycle and ride up to a plane as it's taking off, and then hold on to the wheel and climb inside somehow when the that which just seemed silly. It seemed like sort of saying, she's just as capable as Indy is of doing these kinds of crazy stunts, and making it work somehow, and improvising on the fly and so forth. So, but I would say on the whole, there wasn't as much like, "Ooh, you're an old man now, ha ha ha." There wasn't as much egregious. There wasn't as much of an egregious sense of that, nor was there the that much of an egregious factor with Phoebe Waller-Bridge as Helena or Fleabag uh, in this movie. I thought both of those were just. I mean, they were barely tolerable, but still tolerable. Okay. Now, tolerable is not good. Don't get me wrong. Tolerable is means you can put up with it, but only barely, and you don't want to have the characters in your movie just be tolerable. I also wasn't sure what was going on with this like sort of street urchin character that that hung around with Helena. Sort of a kind of a short round, but Moroccan version of short round. But he's good with everything. He's very competent. He can he can fly a plane. Like like a 12-year-old kid. He can fly a plane. He can do this. He can do that. That seemed. I think I guess some people are saying, oh well, that's this is just showing a brown kid. This is like another anti-white kind of trope, showing a brown kid knowing how to do everything. But I mean, the same could be said about Short Round in the second Indy movie. There you had an Asian kid who was maybe he couldn't do everything, but he was still very capable and very kind of world weary and or in his little kid way. So I don't know what to really say about that kid. I've heard some people talking down that character, but I don't know. I didn't really feel that strongly one way or the other. But here's where things did get strangely egregious. There are a lot of lines about like that sort of subtly or not so subtly reflect on this like whole ooh white supremacy is bad, ooh white people white men, I don't know, kind of also some awareness of like the whole hey, punch a Nazi. Nazis are to be punched, and we can define however Nazis may be defined. Whether they're actually wearing swastika armbands or whether they're rushing the Capitol on June 6th or something like that. But a Nazi is a Nazi, and you got to punch him. And somebody who from Middle America who voted for Trump is just as much of a Nazi as Adolf Hitler. Just this stupid conflation that gets suggested in a few lines. Let me give you some examples. There's during the prologue, there is this peculiar part where they're holding up de-aged Indy. They've got him. They're about to hang him by the neck, and then they ask. They say, "Well, tell your story, tell the story, tell us what happened, and we won't kill you." And he says, "Okay, here's the story. Well, you had a bunch of blue-eyed boys, and they decided to follow this silly man named Adolf. And it was like he was trying to get under their skin. Of course, it was like Indy being defiant and spitting defiance at his Nazi captors, which is fine. But the whole blue-eyed, why is he talking about blue-eyed boys? That seemed really, really strange and creepy. That they would put that line into Indy's mouth, because, I mean, from its inception, this is the yes, the 80s Indy fought Nazis and stuff, but it wasn't about like oh, we got to fight Nazis for the sake of multiculturalism, and we've got to dethrone the white man, and fight white supremacy and all of that. That wasn't that wasn't a theme, nor was that even a subtext of the original not the original trilogy, the original Indiana Jones movies. Actually, neither one nor three, both of the ones that featured Nazis. That was not a subtext at all. But here, it's like it becomes when Indy says there's blue-eyed boys, like, so he's attacking like kids and who have blue eyes in Germany, who grew up in Nazi Germany. Like, why the hell is he saying that? That seemed like that line did not sit well with me, and it's something that I haven't heard anybody else talk about yet. But it's something that I wanted to point out. There's also a couple scenes later, a couple of lines, I should say, later on, where Mads Mikkelsen's character says, in one case, he says to Indy, this world does not belong to you, to people, to men like you and me anymore. It's like he's including Indy in this, because they're both white men. He's saying, the world is, they're putting in the mouth of this Nazi that we're supposed to, the enemy, that the one we're rooting against, and this is what he's saying. He's saying, this is the white man is being devalued, and it's not the white man's world anymore, and that's such a shame. And then another point, so time travel is a factor in this movie. There's, without talking about the plot, I said there would be soilers here, so let the soilers, let the soiling commence. They are about there's this device that they discovered, invented by the Greek Archimedes, which supposedly helps them find little, I don't even know how to say it. It's the flux capacitor. It's some mumbo jumbo. They find little places where they can glitch through and fly through the wormhole and then enter, another period of time. And Mikkelsen's character's plan is to go back to 1939, and this is actually kind of interesting. His plan is to take out Hitler. He, a confirmed Nazi, is going to kill Hitler because he sees that Hitler made a lot of bad decisions and eventually lost his mind, starting from 1939 onward. So he says, I'm going to go and I'm going to replace Hitler and become the new Fuhrer, which is a cool idea. Like that of, because you hear a lot about, oh, well, what if we could go back in time and kill Hitler, and but now they're making it like this ardent Nazi wants to go back in time and kill Hitler for his own reasons, to correct Hitler's errors. But he says to Indy, like, yesterday belongs to us, which is a reversal, which is subtle, but it's a reversal of the line "tomorrow belongs to me," which is a song. It's like a Nazi hymn that's featured in the musical Cabaret. Tomorrow, or yesterday belongs to us. So again, it's this Nazi character, not just saying for the glory of the Reich, not just saying so that we can keep Hitler's dream alive, but making it about the white man, and and how if he's able to do this, then the white race will be saved, or the white man will no longer be pushed to the margins the way that he is after this era of history. Now, again, like the original Raiders and Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, there was never this whiteness thing, that was not an issue. That was not a subtext at all in these original movies. It was like, they're. I mean, the Nazis were portrayed in the way that the Nazis are commonly portrayed, which is, they looked the way that they did look. So it's it's fair enough to portray them that way, right? You wouldn't want to cast Denzel Washington as Hitler or something like that. You want to make the Nazis look like the Nazis actually looked. But then, see, all the heroes were also white. Almost all the heroes were white. So it was never about defeat. Oh, if the Nazis win, then there'll be white supremacy. But if the Nazis lose, then sayonara, white man. That just wasn't the subtext, and it clearly is the subtext here with those lines in particular. You hear my son on the piano accompanying my commentary here. So then there were also a couple of lines like where there were a couple of times where that they sort of they bring up this whole punch a Nazi thing, like there's a time where Nazi henchman is hanging on for dear life, and then she's Helena character says, "Sorry, pal, you're a Nazi." So, which was a definite, that was definitely there for the Antifa types. We got to keep punching Nazis, man. However, and Nazis are whatever we say they are. In the case of this movie, they were real Nazis, but still their repeating of this trope, or the reference to this trope, was definitely for that purpose. Again, going into the Soiler territory. I thought it would have been cool if they actually had. I don't know about the whole time travel thing. That's kind of gay. It was never a part of Indiana Jones before, so it didn't really sit that well with me. But I would have liked to see them actually go back to 39 and to see Mickelson set up and try to assassinate Hitler, and see Indy save Hitler That would have been cool. That would have been so cool if like the good guys were put in the position of saving Hitler, because that's the only way that things could be set right. That would have been an interesting situation, since we had this interesting situation where this very strongly believing, very strongly ideologized National Socialist nevertheless wants to kill Adolf Hitler because he thinks he got it wrong after 1939. But instead, because of some mumbo jumbo, where the glitches don't work that way, they don't, or what we find out the device is really for, was that it only is one. There's only one place that it leads to, and that's to ancient Greece, and to this battle where this battle of Syracuse in ancient Greece, and that's the reason why the device was built, so that someone from the future could come and save them. And it was just kind of that seemed well, that was like anticlimactic, because like I wanted to see them go back to, if they had to go back in time, I wanted to see them go back to Nazi Germany again. I thought that would have been much cooler. But now let's talk about the ending. So if you haven't heard, I think I mentioned this before, but this turned out to be true. This was a rumor that turned out to be true. Like, so we may have had all of these crazy kooky endings that would have really shown, like, that might have erased Indiana Jones from history, but might have been a lot of other stuff too. In any case, these endings weren't doing the trick, so they tacked on this happy ending, and the happy ending is once they're back in ancient Greece, 215 BC. This is where Indy wants to stay. He says, "There's nobody for me in my time anymore. I've lived my life, and I want to stay here." Because this is a part of history that I find, fascinating, and I want to live out the rest of my time here. Now he also has a bullet wound that's maybe gonna end up killing him without modern medicine. But the weird thing about this scene is this is where Helena, gets really upset and like really like begs and pleads with Indy to go back to his time, and it seemed odd or out of character because everything we'd seen of her before suggested she didn't really have any affection for Indy. She was just in it, she was just a like a profiteer. She was just very cynical, and it was all about the money for her. And in any case, she hadn't seen Indy for 20 years, even though she was his goddaughter. There was no real connection between them. But suddenly she gets all upset and pleads with him, and then when he says, "This is just something I have to do," she says, "Well, this is just something I have to do," and she punches him in the face to knock him out. Yes, she does it. She actually does it. So then the next scene, Indy wakes up in New York again in his apartment, and so she's rescued him. They found their way back through the wormhole or whatever the hell it was, with the dial of destiny, the dial of Archimedes or whatever, and then so she's brought him back to the present, back to his time, and he says, "Why did you do that?" And then the surprise ending, again, spoilers, is that we see Marion, his true love, appear again. And, so we see Marion as an elderly woman, but who is going to, who we were given to understand had been mad with grief because Mutt had enlisted and had ended up dying in Vietnam. We're given to understand anyway. It's never stated explicitly, but that's what we're given to understand. And he enlisted because he wanted to piss off Indy, his father, who I guess, he continued to have a stormy, tempestuous relationship with, because Indy wasn't there for the first part of his life, because Indy didn't know that he existed. So, but anyway, that's getting into the Crystal Skull stuff a little bit. But so she loses it, and he can't help her. This is the story that he tells earlier in the movie. But now in this later scene of the movie, Marion shows up, and then she says, I heard you were back. Are you really back? So now it seems more that Indy became distant from her after Mutt's death, and that's what facilitated their divorce, their breakup. Their divorce was pending at the beginning of the movie. And so they have this scene which calls back to the scene the romantic scene in Indy, in the first Indy movie in Raiders, where it hurts all over. Where doesn't it hurt? Etc. Ending with them kissing, but not in too intimate a circumstance, because this is they're both, well, he's 80 and she's in her late 60s or 70s, so we don't want to see them messing around, in bed. Ain't nobody want to see that. And the final thing is that Indy grabs his hat from the windowsill. So it seems that this is more like they're going for more of a pro-Indy, optimistic, happy ending kind of scenario, whereas maybe the original scenario was to be much clearer that Indy was going to die, and that Helena was going to take his place in some way, but that just bombed so hard, and even the higher ups at Disney weren't having it, and they went and told Kathleen Kennedy, we're not taking this. This has gone too far. You gotta change that ending. That's what they say anyway. That's what the rumors all say. So yeah, so there's my assessment of Indy Jones 5. Not as terrible as I thought it was going to be. Pretty bad. Bad in ways that I didn't think it would be, and not as bad in ways that I thought it would be. So at least it was unpredictable in that respect. And it didn't help that I went into the movie from the very beginning thinking I'm not going to like this. This is going to suck. So I think it helps when you have expectations are absolutely at 0 or less than 0 to start out with. You're going to be pleasantly surprised, and I think that was what happened with me. All right, that's it. You can barely see me. It's getting dark. These are my twilight years, so appropriate. So thanks for watching. Talk soon.